"You are searching the wrong mountain." Ryan Cooper said it quietly, but the words cut through the radio static, idling engines, and tired voices gathered beneath the temporary search tent. It was 4:38 in the morning, and the Colorado sky was still black above the ridgeline. For nearly 9 hours, deputies, volunteer rescuers, and private security teams had searched for Ashley Parker, the 28-year-old chief executive officer who had vanished somewhere between Denver and a private mountain retreat. Her last confirmed location placed her SUV near the Eastern Access Road. Search crews had followed that lead for miles. Nothing. No phone signal. No fresh tracks. No sign that she had ever reached the resort. Now freezing fog was settling into the valleys, and the northern search sector was being suspended until daylight. "Call it off," the coordinator said into his radio. North teams returned to staging. Ryan looked up from the paper maps spread across the hood of his old pickup. "Wait." A deputy glanced at him. "Mr. Cooper, we appreciate the help, but we have covered that area twice." Ryan was 32, a single father and utility line technician with dark brown hair, a weathered face, and the solid build of a man accustomed to climbing poles and carrying equipment through rough country. His brown work jacket smelled faintly of pine, cold air, and machine oil. He was not law enforcement. He was not part of the official rescue team. He was only there because he knew these service roads better than most maps did. "You covered the marked roads," Ryan said. "That is where her navigation placed her." Then her navigation was wrong. The deputy sighed. "Based on what?" Ryan pointed toward the map. 3 things bothered him. The wind had shifted west shortly before midnight. A maintenance camera 8 miles north had briefly captured reflected headlights where no scheduled utility vehicle should have been. And the eastern road they were searching had been closed by a washed-out culvert for 6 days. Someone following local signs would have turned around. Someone following digital directions might not have known. "There is an old utility road here," Ryan said, tracing a faded line toward the northern ridge. "It has not been public for years." The coordinator shook his head. "We cannot send people onto an unverified route in this fog." Ryan looked toward the mountains. The darkness above them was beginning to soften from black to deep blue. Dawn was coming, but not quickly enough. He thought about Grace asleep at his sister's house, probably curled beneath her yellow blanket with one sock missing as usual. Before Ryan left, his 7-year-old daughter had pressed her little flashlight into his hand. "For the lady who is lost," she had said. Ryan touched it now inside his jacket pocket. He folded the map. "Then I will check the entrance." "Ryan." The deputy stepped closer. "Do not turn this into something it is not." Ryan met his eyes. "I am not trying to be a hero." "Then go home." Ryan looked toward the empty northern road. "I will. After I know there is nothing left to find." 23 minutes later, his pickup crawled along wet gravel beneath towering pines, its headlights cutting narrow tunnels through the fog. The road narrowed, curved, then nearly disappeared beneath weeds. Ryan slowed. Something reflected between the trees ahead. Silver. Clean. Expensive. He stopped the truck. 50 yards beyond the abandoned utility gate sat a black luxury SUV, silent beneath the first gray light of morning. Ryan stepped out and approached carefully. The driver's door was open. The cabin light was still glowing. A purse rested on the passenger seat. But Ashley Parker was gone. Ryan stood beside the abandoned SUV and listened. No voices. No footsteps. Only wind moving through the pines and the soft ticking of an engine that had gone cold hours earlier. He did not touch anything inside. Instead, he backed away and called the search coordinator. "I found her vehicle." The exhaustion disappeared from the man's voice. "Location." Ryan gave the coordinates. "Stay there. Do not move." Ryan looked toward the narrow utility road disappearing into the fog. "I can do one of those things." "Ryan, send your people. I am checking the immediate area." He ended the call before an argument could begin. Yet as he reached for Grace's flashlight, his daughter's voice returned to him with unexpected clarity. 3 years earlier, Ryan had learned what it meant to become the only parent waiting at the end of every school day. Since then, his life had been measured in ordinary responsibilities. Breakfast before sunrise, utility shifts that sometimes stretched 10 hours, grocery lists taped to the refrigerator, and bedtime stories he occasionally fell asleep reading before Grace did. Their small rented house outside Evergreen had no impressive view and no expensive furniture. The heater complained every winter. His pickup needed new tires. Money required planning. But Grace never went to sleep wondering whether her father would come home. Ryan protected that promise carefully. The night before, when his supervisor called about a missing driver near company service roads, Ryan had been making grilled cheese while Grace colored at the kitchen table. "Do you have to go?" she asked. "Only for a little while." "Who was missing?" "A woman." Grace stopped coloring. "Does her family know where she is?" "No." "Then they are waiting." Ryan looked at his daughter. Children had a way of reducing complicated things to their moral center. Someone was lost. Someone else was waiting. That was enough. Before he left, Grace ran to her bedroom and returned with the small blue flashlight she kept beside her bed. "Take this." Ryan smiled. "I have a better flashlight in the truck. This one is lucky." "Since when?" "Since now." He had accepted it because refusing would have mattered more than carrying it. Now, beneath the pale Colorado dawn, Ryan switched on Grace's flashlight and walked around the SUV. Mud covered the lower panels. The rear tires carried pale clay that did not belong to this stretch of road. He crouched, studying it. Utility crews knew that clay. It came from higher ground, almost 2 miles north. Ryan straightened. The fog was thinning enough to reveal the outline of the ridge. Behind him, distant sirens began climbing toward the abandoned gate. He should wait. That was the sensible choice. Then he noticed something beside the road. A shallow footprint pressed into wet soil. 20 feet farther, another. They led away from the SUV toward an old maintenance trail. Ryan stared at them, then at the approaching lights far below. What if everybody is right? Grace had asked before he left. What if there was nothing to find? Ryan had answered without thinking. Then I come home knowing I looked. He stepped onto the trail. 50 yards in, something pale caught against a branch. Ryan stopped. It was a torn strip of fabric, clean enough that it had not been there long. Beyond it, almost hidden beneath pine needles, lay a folded sheet of paper. Ryan picked it up carefully by one corner. It was a printed navigation route. The destination was not the mountain resort. It was an old utility access point that had been removed from public maps years ago. Ryan looked toward the ridge as the first line of sunlight touched the snow above him. Whoever Ashley Parker was, she had not simply taken a wrong turn. Ryan studied the printed route beneath the beam of Grace's little blue flashlight. The page looked ordinary at first, but the coordinates told a different story. They were not formatted like directions from a public navigation service. They were utility coordinates, the kind used by field crews to identify transformers, access gates, and maintenance stations hidden beyond ordinary roads. Ryan knew because he had worked with the same system for almost 9 years. He carefully left the paper where he had found it and photographed it with his phone. Then he called the search coordinator. "I found a route sheet near the vehicle. Do not touch anything else. Teams are 5 minutes out. The destination is Utility Access 47. Silence followed. "What is that?" "An abandoned service corridor about 2 miles north." Ryan looked toward the trail. "And it should not appear on any public map." He returned to the SUV while waiting for the search team. With dawn spreading slowly through the trees, details that darkness had hidden became visible. The driver's door remained open. A wool coat rested across the rear seat. A leather purse sat untouched in front. On the center console was a smartphone. Ryan did not pick it up. He leaned close enough to see the screen when a deputy arrived and pressed the power button through a clean evidence glove. The phone came alive. 58% battery. The deputy frowned. Maybe it shut down automatically. Ryan shook his head. Not with that much charge. The device had been powered off manually. That was the first thing that did not fit. The second was the route sheet. The third appeared when Ryan walked with 2 rescuers around the rear of the SUV. Pale clay coated the tires. "This vehicle was farther north before it came here," Ryan said. "How can you tell?" "That clay comes from above Miller Ridge. The soil here is darker." One rescuer looked toward the mountain. "So she drove up, came back down, then stopped here?" "Looks that way." Ryan stared at the open driver's door. Why would someone drive toward a location that should not exist on her map, turn around, then abandon a working vehicle? A soft electronic chime came from inside the SUV. The deputy had restored the phone. A notification appeared on the lock screen. It was dated shortly before Ashley disappeared. Route updated due to emergency access closure. Follow company approved alternate coordinates. Ryan felt something cold that had nothing to do with the mountain air. "Company approved," he repeated. The deputy photographed the screen. Could be an automated message. Maybe. But Ryan had seen automated utility routing alerts before. They included department codes, authorization numbers, and timestamps generated by the dispatch server. This one displayed something else beneath the coordinates, a small silver compass symbol. Ryan stared at it longer than he meant to. Years ago, Grace's mother had owned a keychain with the same unusual compass design. She had received it while working a temporary engineering contract before Grace was born. Ryan had never asked much about the company behind it. Back then, life had been busy, hopeful, ordinary. He pushed the memory aside. It could mean nothing. Then the deputy opened the route details. The sender field appeared. Parker Dynamics Executive Operations. The rescuers exchanged looks. Ryan said nothing. The woman they were searching for had not wandered onto this mountain by accident. Someone inside her own company had directed her here. Then Ryan noticed another detail on the screen. The route had been acknowledged at 11:46 the previous night, but Ashley's vehicle had reached this road nearly an hour earlier according to the SUV's onboard history. The message had arrived after she was already here. Ryan looked toward the rising trail. This was not sent to bring her here, he said. The deputy frowned. Then why send it? Ryan turned toward the pale ridge as sunlight began touching the highest pines. To make everyone believe this is where she meant to go. Ryan looked at the false route on the phone, then toward the trail climbing through the pines. If somebody wanted us searching around the vehicle, we should be looking where the vehicle cannot go. The deputy studied him. What are you thinking? There is an old maintenance shelter above the ridge. How far? About 1.5 miles on foot. Two rescuers immediately gathered their equipment, but Ryan was already studying the terrain. The official trail curved east before climbing north. He knew an older service path that cut nearly 1/2 mile from the route. 20 minutes later, the three men moved beneath thinning fog as morning light spilled between the trees. Wet gravel became packed earth. Packed earth became pine needles and patches of late-season snow. Ryan kept Grace's flashlight in his hand even though daylight was growing stronger. At the first fork, one rescuer pointed right. Map says this way. Ryan went left. That bridge washed out 4 years ago. The map still shows it. The mountain does not care what the map shows. They continued. Ryan noticed a disturbed patch of needles, then a faint shoe impression beside a fallen log. Farther ahead, a small branch had been bent downward recently. 3 signs, small enough to ignore separately. Together, they formed a direction. Someone came through here, Ryan said. The deputy radioed their position while Ryan climbed another 100 yards. Then he saw the roof. The old maintenance shelter sat beneath 2 enormous pines, weathered gray boards nearly disappearing into the mountain. Its windows were dark. The door was closed. Ryan stopped. Ashley. Nothing answered. One rescuer called again. Silence. Then Ryan heard it. Not a voice. A faint metallic tapping from inside. 3 taps. A pause. 3 more. Ryan crossed the final yards and opened the door. Cold morning light entered the small room. A blonde woman sat against the far wall wrapped in an old emergency blanket she had apparently found inside a storage cabinet. Her face was pale with exhaustion, her hair disordered, but her eyes were open. She raised one hand against the sudden brightness. Ashley Parker? Ryan asked. Her lips moved before sound came. Water. Ryan crouched several feet away while the trained rescuers stepped forward to assess her condition. One handed her water slowly while the other radioed that she had been found alive and conscious. Ryan remained near the doorway, relief moving through him so quietly that nobody noticed. He thought of Grace. Someone was lost. Someone was waiting. Now somebody could finally make that call. Ashley looked past the rescuers toward Ryan. Her gaze settled on the worn work jacket, the dark hair, the little blue flashlight still glowing uselessly in daylight. You found me, she whispered. Ryan gave a tired nod. Looks that way. Her expression shifted from relief to confusion. You came back. Ryan frowned. I was never here before. Ashley stared at him. The rescuer beside her paused. What do you mean, came back? Ashley closed her eyes for a moment, gathering strength. When she opened them again, fear had been replaced by something more controlled. Suspicion. Last night, I heard a vehicle outside. Ryan glanced toward the deputy. Did you see who it was? No. I saw headlights through the window. I called out. They stopped. She swallowed. Then they drove away. The room became still. Ryan asked, Who did you think it was? Ashley looked directly at him. The company. Ryan remembered the false notification, the impossible timestamp, and the silver compass symbol on her phone. Why would your company know you were here? Ashley hesitated. Because someone sent me coordinates before I left Denver. I thought they came from my executive office. The deputy exchanged a look with Ryan. Ashley noticed. What? Ryan chose his words carefully. We found a route notification on your phone. Then you know. Not exactly. He stepped closer. That notification was sent after your vehicle was already on this mountain. Ashley went completely silent. Outside, the sun finally broke across the ridge, turning the fog gold between the pines. Everyone had spent the night asking where Ashley Parker had gone. Ryan now understood they had been asking the wrong question. Someone already knew. By 7:15 that morning, Ashley Parker was sitting inside a heated rescue vehicle with a wool blanket around her shoulders and a paper cup of warm water between her hands. Medical personnel had examined her and found her exhausted, dehydrated, and chilled, but alert enough to answer questions. Ryan stood several yards away near his pickup, speaking with the deputy about the utility road when 3 black SUVs arrived at the staging area. Doors opened almost at once. Assistants, security personnel, and 2 people carrying Parker Dynamics identification moved quickly toward Ashley. Ryan watched without much interest until one of the rescuers beside him said, "That is a lot of company security for one person." Ryan glanced over. She must be important. The rescuer stared at him. You seriously do not know who you found? Ryan shook his head. The man almost laughed. Ashley Parker, founder and chief executive officer of Parker Dynamics. Energy technology, infrastructure systems, billions in contracts. She is worth more money than everyone on this mountain will see in 10 lifetimes. Ryan looked back at Ashley. Nothing about his expression changed. She was still cold when I found her. The rescuer blinked. That is your response. Should there be another one? Across the staging area, Ashley had heard enough to understand. For most of her adult life, learning her name changed people. Voices became softer. Smiles became wider. Favors appeared before she requested them. Sometimes admiration was genuine. Sometimes it was calculation wearing good manners. Ryan Cooper had learned she was a billionaire and responded as if someone had told him the weather forecast. One of her executives approached him. Mr. Cooper, Parker Dynamics would like your contact information. Miss Parker will certainly want to arrange appropriate compensation. Ryan closed the tailgate of his pickup. The sheriff's office has my number. I am talking about a financial reward. I know. Then perhaps you should speak with our legal department before leaving. Ryan looked toward Ashley. Is she safe? Yes. Then I need to pick up my daughter. The executive seemed genuinely confused. You found one of the most recognizable business leaders in the country alive after an overnight search. And my 7-year-old is waiting for breakfast. Ryan climbed into his truck. Before he could close the door, Ashley called across the gravel. Mr. Cooper. He looked back. She stood beside the rescue vehicle now, still wrapped in the blanket. Thank you. Ryan nodded. Get some rest. That was all. No photograph. No request. No mention of money. He drove away while the people around Ashley watched his old pickup disappear down the mountain road. 25 minutes later, Grace answered Ryan's call on the second ring. Dad. Morning, kiddo. Did you find the lady? Ryan smiled despite his exhaustion. I found her. Is she okay? Ryan looked at the sunrise spreading gold across the windshield. She will be. Grace was quiet for a moment. Did my flashlight work? Best flashlight on the mountain. Ashley stood nearby with an assistant holding her recovered phone. She heard the conversation through Ryan's open truck window before he pulled away, and something about it stayed with her. He had not called anyone to say he found a billionaire. He had called his daughter to say he found a woman. Later that morning, after Ashley reached a private medical clinic outside Denver, her chief security officer placed the recovered route notification on the table. We traced the message. Ashley looked up. To whom? He hesitated. Not to whom. To where? He turned the screen toward her. The notification had originated from Parker Dynamics headquarters. Executive-level access. Ashley stared at the silver compass symbol beside the routing code. She had seen that symbol before, years earlier, in an archived engineering file bearing the name of a contractor she had never met. A woman whose last name was Cooper. By Monday morning, Ashley Parker was back inside Parker Dynamics headquarters in downtown Denver. Her doctors had recommended another day of rest. She ignored the recommendation, but not because she felt invincible. The mountain had cured her of that illusion. She entered through a private garage shortly after 6:30, before most employees arrived, wearing a simple cream coat and carrying the recovered phone in her hand. Her chief security officer, Marcus Reed, followed her into the executive conference room and closed the door. "We completed the first internal trace," he said. The route message came through an executive server. Ashley placed the phone on the table. "Who had access?" "7 people." "Reduce it." Marcus hesitated. "There is another problem." The coordinates were formatted using a legacy utility protocol from a Parker Dynamics infrastructure project 9 years ago. Ashley remembered the name she had seen in the archive. "Cooper, show me the project." Marcus opened a digital file. Silver Compass Initiative appeared across the screen. Ashley leaned closer. The symbol matched the one attached to the false route notification. The project had developed emergency routing tools for utility crews working beyond reliable cellular coverage. It had been discontinued after a corporate restructuring. "Who designed the coordinate system?" Ashley asked. Marcus opened the personnel history. Most names meant nothing to her. Then one appeared. Laura Cooper, Contract Systems Engineer. Ashley stared at it. "Find out whether she is related to Ryan Cooper." 20 minutes later, Marcus returned with an answer. She was his wife. Ashley looked toward the windows. Denver was waking beneath the morning sun, traffic filling the streets far below. She passed away 3 years ago. Ashley became quiet. Suddenly Ryan's old pickup, his 7-year-old daughter, and his refusal to stay for recognition carried a weight she had not understood. Did Ryan know she worked here? Her employment file lists him as her emergency contact. Beyond that, I cannot say. Before Ashley could respond, the conference room door opened and Derek Coleman entered. At 41, Parker Dynamics Executive Vice President had built his reputation on calm efficiency. This morning, his smile arrived a fraction too quickly. "You should be home recovering." "I am working. The board can manage for a few days." Ashley watched him carefully. "I heard they managed quite a lot while I was missing." Derek's smile faded. "We had obligations. Markets do not stop because of an emergency. Neither did you." Silence settled over the table. Ashley turned the screen toward him. "Do you recognize this?" Derek glanced at the compass symbol. "Old infrastructure branding. The message that redirected my search records used it. Then someone recycled an old template from an executive server." Derek shrugged. "Information technology can investigate." Ashley noticed what he did not ask. He did not ask whether she remembered receiving the original coordinates. He did not ask why someone had used a retired system. He did not even appear surprised. "There is an emergency board meeting tomorrow," she said. "Yes." "Who requested it?" "I did." Derek folded his hands. "Your disappearance exposed a leadership vulnerability. The company needs continuity provisions." Ashley held his gaze. "I was missing for one night. One night can move billions of dollars." There it was. Not concern. Calculation. After Derek left, Marcus placed another report before her. The false notification had been generated from a restricted account, but the access record had been partially erased. One fragment remained. The coordinates had been copied from an archived Silver Compass engineering file. Ashley looked again at Laura Cooper's name. "Call Ryan." An hour later, Ryan answered from a utility yard, wind moving across the phone. "Miss Parker, Ashley is fine." "All right, Ashley." She almost smiled. "I need to ask about your wife." The silence on the other end changed immediately. "What about her?" "Laura worked for Parker Dynamics. For 6 months, years ago. She helped develop the coordinate system that appeared on my phone." Ryan said nothing. Ashley continued carefully. "Did she ever talk about Silver Compass?" Another pause. "Not by that name." "What did she call it?" Ryan's voice became quieter. "Grace's map." Ashley frowned. "Why?" "Because Laura designed the original routing logic while she was pregnant. She said if it could guide one worker home safely, it was worth building." Ashley stared at the compass symbol on the screen. Ryan then added, "But there is something you should know. Laura told me that system was never supposed to accept commands from executive accounts." Ashley slowly stood. "Then how did mine?" "It could not," Ryan said, "unless someone changed the original code." Ryan arrived at Parker Dynamics shortly after 2 that afternoon, wearing his brown work jacket, faded jeans, and boots still marked with pale mountain dust. He had come directly from a utility repair outside Golden, and the contrast between him and the polished marble lobby was impossible to miss. Two executives waiting near the elevators looked him over before one quietly asked security whether contractors were supposed to use the service entrance. Ryan heard him. He kept walking. Ashley heard him too. "Mr. Cooper is with me," she said from across the lobby. Every nearby conversation softened. Ashley approached Ryan without an entourage, her golden blonde hair pulled back and her expression composed. "Thank you for coming. I have to leave by 4:30. "Another job?" "My daughter." Ashley nodded. "Then we will not waste your time." Upstairs, Marcus had isolated the archived silver compass files inside a secure conference room. Derek was already there with 3 senior executives and the head of information technology. His eyes moved over Ryan's clothes. "This is the consultant?" "No," Ashley said. "This is the man who found me after everyone else stopped looking." Silence followed. Ryan placed no importance on it. He walked to the screen where the altered routing code was displayed. "Show me the coordinate conversion." The information technology director hesitated. "This is proprietary architecture." Ashley looked at him. "Show him." Lines of legacy code appeared. Ryan studied them for less than a minute before pointing toward one routing function. "That was changed." Derek leaned back. "You are a utility technician, not a software engineer." "Correct. Then perhaps we should let qualified people interpret it." Ryan remained calm. "My wife explained this system to me for 6 months while she was building it." I listened. Ashley glanced at him. There was no pride in his voice, only memory. Marcus enlarged the function. Ryan pointed again. "Laura designed the original system so executive accounts could request coordinates, but they could not overwrite field routing. Someone removed that restriction." The information technology director began checking revision records. 1 minute passed. Then 2. His face changed. "He is right." Derek straightened. "When was it modified?" "4 months ago." "By whom?" The director searched again. The administrator identification was deleted. Derek exhaled. "Then we have nothing." Ryan looked at the screen. "Not nothing." 3 entries appeared beside the modified code. A test route. A permissions check. A final live request. Ryan recognized the last coordinates immediately. "That is the mountain." Marcus leaned forward. "And the first 2?" Ryan studied them. "Utility sites." Ashley asked, "Why test them there?" Ryan looked toward the compass symbol in the corner of the archived file. "Because whoever changed this needed to know whether the system would accept an executive command without creating a standard dispatch record." The information technology director checked the server history. There is still a secondary authentication token attached to the first test. Derek's expression tightened. Marcus read the token aloud. It belonged to the executive vice president's office. Nobody spoke. Derek slowly stood. "My department has hundreds of credentials." "That proves nothing." Ashley held his gaze. "Then you will have no objection to an independent audit." "Ashley, think carefully. Tomorrow's board meeting concerns your ability to lead after a serious incident. Turning this into an accusation makes you look unstable." Ryan looked at Derek. "She did not accuse you." Derek stopped. Ryan continued. "You just defended yourself against something nobody said." The room became quiet again. Ashley turned to Marcus. "Preserve every server record. Nobody touches the archive." Then Ryan noticed a file name beneath the original Silver Compass directory. It carried a date from 7 years earlier, 2 years after Laura had supposedly left Parker Dynamics. Ryan stared at it. "That cannot be right." Ashley moved beside him. "What?" Ryan pointed to the author field. "Laura Cooper." His voice lowered. "My wife told me she stopped working for this company before Grace was born." Marcus opened the file. It contained only one encrypted document and a short note. "If this system is ever used against the person it was designed to protect, give this file to my daughter." Ryan stopped breathing for a moment. Ashley looked at him. "Grace." Ryan slowly nodded. For the first time since walking into Parker Dynamics, the single father who had remained calm through every insult and every revelation looked genuinely shaken. Someone had changed Laura's system 4 months ago. But 7 years earlier, Laura had somehow known that one day someone might try. The emergency board meeting began at 8 the next morning, but Derek Coleman was already seated when Ashley entered the room. He had expected her to appear tired, uncertain, perhaps grateful that someone else had kept the company moving during her absence. Instead, Ashley walked to the head of the table with Marcus beside her and placed a sealed evidence folder in front of 12 directors. Ryan was not with them. At 7:20, he had sent Ashley a simple message saying Grace had a school breakfast and he had promised to be there. Ashley understood. A promise to his daughter mattered more to him than watching a powerful executive lose a boardroom fight. Before we discuss leadership continuity, Ashley said, we are going to discuss why my vehicle ended up on an abandoned mountain road. Derek folded his hands. This again. Yes, this again. Marcus presented the server records. 3 routing events. 1 altered permissions function. 1 surviving authentication token connected to the executive vice president's office. Derek remained composed. My office has multiple administrators. We checked them, Marcus said. None accessed Silver Compass. A director leaned forward. Then who did? Marcus changed the screen. A security log appeared. Derek's executive credential had authorized the first test 4 months earlier. Another record connected the same credential to the permissions modification. The third linked it to the false route notification. Derek looked at Ashley. You cannot prove I personally used that credential. No, Ashley said. But an independent audit can determine whether you did. She slid a document across the table. Effective immediately, your administrative privileges are suspended pending review. Derek's voice sharpened. You disappear for 1 night, return with a utility worker and a conspiracy theory, and expect this board to follow you? Ashley did not raise her voice. The utility worker found me when everyone in this building was preparing for what came after me. Silence settled across the room. And while I was still missing, she continued, you scheduled a meeting concerning temporary executive authority. Derek looked toward the directors. Because leadership requires preparation. Leadership also requires trust. Ashley paused. You lost mine. The vote to suspend Derek from executive authority passed without drama. No applause followed. No triumphant speech. Only pens moving across paper and the quiet sound of a man discovering that control could disappear without anyone shouting. When the meeting ended, Ashley found Ryan waiting downstairs after all. He stood near the lobby windows with Grace beside him, her backpack covered in tiny embroidered stars. I thought you had work, Ashley said. I do. Ryan nodded toward Grace. She wanted her flashlight back. Grace looked up at Ashley. Dad said it helped find you. Ashley crouched to her level and handed her the little blue flashlight. It did. Grace smiled. Then it is still lucky. Ashley looked at Ryan. The board suspended Derek. The audit continues. Good. That is all you have to say? What do you want me to say? Ashley almost laughed. Most people would ask what happens to him. Ryan shrugged. Truth has people for that. Grace has me. Ashley stood slowly. I also authorized a substantial reward for you. Ryan's expression changed immediately. No, you have not heard the amount. Does not matter. Ryan, you found me alive. He looked at her with the same quiet steadiness he had shown on the mountain. You do not owe me for being alive. Ashley had negotiated contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars without losing her words. Now she had none. Grace slipped her hand into Ryan's. As they turned toward the doors, Ashley remembered Laura Cooper's encrypted file. Ryan, wait. He stopped. We still cannot open Laura's document. It requires a personal recovery phrase. Ryan shook his head. I do not know one. Grace looked between them. Mom had a secret phrase. Ryan turned toward his daughter. What? Grace shrugged. She used to say it when we looked at maps. She said I should remember it forever. Ashley became still. What did she say? Grace answered with 7 simple words. The safest road always leads you home. Marcus entered the phrase remotely. Ashley's phone chimed seconds later. The encrypted file opened. At the top was a document addressed not to Ryan, not to Grace, and not to Parker Dynamics. It was addressed to Ashley Parker. The document opened with a date from 7 years earlier and a sentence that made Ashley forget the crowded lobby around her. If you are reading this, Ashley Parker, then Silver Compass has failed in the one way I feared most. Ryan stared at the screen while Grace stood beside him holding her little blue flashlight. Ashley read on. Laura Cooper explained that Silver Compass had never been created merely as a routing system. During her contract at Parker Dynamics, she discovered that remote utility workers were sometimes being directed by executive software that prioritized schedules and costs over field conditions. Laura rebuilt the routing logic around one principle. No executive command could override a worker's safest verified route. She had called it Grace's map because she was pregnant when she wrote the first version, and every night she imagined what kind of system she would trust to guide her own child home. Ryan lowered his eyes. He had known Laura cared about the project. He had never known why. The document continued. Laura had also discovered an administrative proposal to remove those protections. She preserved the original architecture, encrypted her concerns, and addressed them to Ashley because Ashley's father, Parker Dynamics' previous chairman, had once promised that his daughter would inherit not only the company, but the responsibility to protect the people inside it. Ashley swallowed hard. My father knew her? Ryan asked. Ashley nodded slowly. Apparently better than I did. Marcus continued reading the technical appendix. The evidence was clear enough to strengthen the independent audit. Someone had later restored the very executive override Laura had warned against. Derek had not invented the weakness. He had exploited one that Laura predicted years before. Weeks passed. The audit concluded. Derek left Parker Dynamics, and new safeguards placed field safety beyond executive override. Ashley publicly credited Laura Cooper as the engineer who had designed the original protection. She offered Ryan compensation again. He refused again. Then let me do something for Grace, Ashley said. You already did. What? Ryan looked toward a framed photograph of Laura, now hanging inside Parker Dynamics Engineering Hall. You remembered her correctly. 3 weeks later, just before sunset, a silver sedan stopped outside Ryan's modest house near Evergreen. No security detail followed. No assistant stepped out. Ashley walked to the porch carrying Grace's blue flashlight and a paper grocery bag. Ryan opened the door and raised an eyebrow. That flashlight keeps coming back. Ashley smiled. Grace said lucky things should be returned. Grace appeared behind him. Did you bring dinner? Ashley lifted the bag. I brought ingredients. Grace considered this seriously. That means Dad still has to cook. Ryan laughed, and Ashley did too. For the first time in months, nobody needed anything from her. No decision. No signature. No performance. She entered a warm kitchen where soup simmered on the stove and children's drawings covered the refrigerator. Later, Grace fell asleep on the couch while Ryan and Ashley sat quietly at the kitchen table. That morning on the mountain, Ashley said, I had stopped believing anyone was coming. Ryan looked at her. But someone did. That is not what I mean. She glanced toward Grace. You found me once. The two of you did something harder afterward. You reminded me that not everyone approaches another person because they want something. Ryan said nothing. Quiet did not always need filling. Ashley reached into her coat and placed the blue flashlight on the table. Its battery compartment had come loose. Inside was a folded strip of paper neither of them had noticed. Ryan carefully opened it. The handwriting was Laura's. His face went still. There were only 2 sentences. Grace, if this light ever helps your father bring someone home, trust him when he tells you it was luck. He never understood that bringing people home has always been his gift. Ryan looked at his daughter sleeping peacefully across the room. Then Ashley noticed a date beneath Laura's words. It had been written only 4 days before Laura died. The flashlight had never been a child's toy. Laura had prepared it for Ryan. She had somehow known that after she was gone, he would keep choosing the same thing he had always chosen, to show up when someone needed him. Ashley reached across the table and rested her hand gently beside his, asking for nothing. Outside, snow began falling softly over Evergreen. Ryan had thought he found a stranger alive at dawn because he refused to stop searching. Only now did he understand that years earlier, the woman he loved had quietly left him one final compass, and it had led him not toward the mountain, but toward a second chance.